Welcome to today's meeting of the Health and Social Care Select Committee at the London Borough of Hillingdon. This meeting is being broadcast on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon London. The purpose of this committee is to monitor services provided by health partners in adult social care and review their performance. We also undertake in-depth reviews and witness sessions on specific topics and submit our findings to the decision-making cabinet. My name is Councillor Nick Denys and I'm chair of this committee. Before we start, I have some important housekeeping for everyone present. Please ensure any mobile phones are on silent. We're not expecting a fire drill, so if the fire alarm does go off, please follow Nikki out of the building. Please keep your microphones muted when you aren't speaking, then unmute to speak. As chair, I'll call on those to speak during the meeting. It's worth noting that some of the councillors on this committee may be using devices to access the agenda and papers for the meeting. So we're now going to move on to the agenda. Nikki, do we have any apologies for absence?
Chair, we've had apologies from Councillor Nelson.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest before this meeting? No? Brilliant. Thank you very much. We now move on to the minutes of the 16th of September 2025. Are we happy that they are an accurate reflection of our meeting? Yep. Excellent. So they are approved. Thank you very much. Item 4 is exclusion of press and public, but everything we're discussing tonight is public. Fantastic. So brilliant. So now we can move on to our first and most major substantive item, which is item 5, the Adult Social Care Early Intervention and Prevention Review, the fourth witness session. Now, this is our last witness session before we have to go away and write up the report. I say we, I mean the royal we, in Nikki is the royal we. But this is our last session to gather evidence before we think about what our recommendations in this very interesting and ever-expanding topic is. So I'm going to pass over to Gary Collier, who's Health and Social Care Integration Manager here at London Borough of Hillingdon, because we've got a few people who are going to contribute to this. So Gary, do you mind sort of, as I say, orchestrate this or conduct this?
Chair, what I was just going to do, with your permission, is to say a few brief words of introduction and then pass over to Linda Andrew as Chief Executive of Carers Trust, the lead organisation for the Hillingdon Carers Partnership of delivering the Carers Support Service. But as you were saying, Chair, this is the fourth witness session. The committee has actually, as part of their review into early intervention and prevention services, considered a number of the contracts for services that the council has in place as part of its prevention offer. The carer support service is critical to that offer. Hasn't been possible for the committee to consider it earlier because of the contract award process. Now the committee has the opportunity to do that. What the committee will see is I've actually set out within the report some of the parameters of the service, but the partners from the Hillingdon Carers Partnership are here to expand on that further, and then again, with your permission, Chair, if once the partners have actually finished presenting, if it could then be open to the committee to ask questions.
That sounds like a good idea. So Gary, if you mind sort of almost chairing the first bit with those who come here to witness, then when we get into questions I'll take the chairing baton back off you and we can sort of delve into some of the things that are being said. So thank you.
So on that note, Chair, I'd like to pass over to Linda Andrew.
Thank you, Gary. Good evening. Okay. So you will have noticed that there's been a change, yes? Okay, all right. Wonderful Sally has, retired after, I believe, close to 11 years at the helm of Carers Trust Hillingdon and now at Carers Trust Hillingdon and Ealing. And I've been in post for 9 weeks. Yeah, okay. So Carers Trust is the lead partner for the HCP Hillingdon Carers Partnership, providing a single point of access for carers to vital services. As a carer-led organisation, nearly 70% of our board of trustees, staff team and volunteers have lived experience as carers. The strength of the partnership lies in strong collaborative work with local, highly specialist support services. The partnership is incredibly effective due to a joined-up approach, which ensures that the services carers need are provided under one contract. Our team at Carers Trust have developed strong working relationships with our colleagues in partner organisations. Our integrated approach allows seamless referrals for carers with complex needs, including dementia support, mental health counselling and respite. For young carers, our partners Give Space provide mental health and wellbeing support within schools, offering a safe environment for creative expression. This joined-up approach means carers do not need to repeat their stories multiple times, and they benefit from coordinated wraparound care. Each partner maintains distinct roles and responsibilities, but collaborates as needed. The jointly developed two-tier assessment with the Council streamlines access, eliminating the need for multiple form filling and enabling early support. Tier 1 assessments fulfil statutory requirements, while Tier 2 assessments address anything triggered from Tier 1 are more complex. So on the Carers Register, we currently have 6,156 adult carers. Breaking this down, 1,343 are young carers and 536 are young adult carers. So young adult carers are our carers aged between 18 and 25 in the instance of those who have special additional needs. So between 2024 and 25, we were able to identify and register 1,017 new carers, extending our reach and providing vital support. In the same year, 345 young carers and young adult carers were registered. Our two-tiered risk-based assessment for young carers enables a holistic approach, increasingly considering both parent carers together with young carers. So this means that we have a more holistic offer that considers the young carer and their family as a whole. So if we consider aspects of the service that provide the greatest impact, in the last financial year, our advice and information team secured £1,671,540 in carer-related benefits. This significant achievement has probably had the greatest impact on the largest number of carers, increasing the household income for carers and the person they care for. We take a holistic approach to benefit checks as we look at the household income of all involved in the care role. Not only does this benefit carers, but also contributes to the local economy. For our young carers, our school team reaches the largest number of young carers, as schools are usually the first place where young carers are identified. Over the 8 years, and my partners will correct me if it's longer than that, forgive me, of the partnership, we've managed to secure in excess of 1.7 million in grant funding. Our success in this area is attributable to strong partnership working and our approach, which consistently relies on amplifying carers' voices in our bids so that their needs are clearly represented. Carers are engaged to provide feedback in a range of fora, such as the Big Listen and Carers Forum, which some of you may have attended recently, which followed our AGM, and our carers cafes scattered across the borough. But of course there are challenges, such as hard-to-reach carers or those who may not consider themselves holding a caring role. So accessing hard-to-reach carers relies on our engagement with local communities. For example, we currently support 40 families from the traveller community and are looking at investing staff training in this area, funding permitting, to better understand cultural barriers and systemic factors that can hinder this cohort accessing services. Engaging this demographic has proved incredibly challenging, due in part to their mistrust of services. Therefore, home visits are essential for this group, as they are less likely to come to carer events. We are also looking at how we can enhance outreach and wellbeing activities in the borough's north, so that's Ruislip, Norfolk and Pinner. In our young carers clubs, we've noted that attendance is not at all reflective of the borough's increasingly diverse demographic. So we are looking at building stronger links with faith groups, community leaders, and organisations that work specifically with marginalised groups. So how do we measure our effectiveness? A key one, of course, will be ensuring that we comply with KPIs. Service user feedback, I've mentioned that role that plays in grant funding, but also all aspects of our work are very much informed by the needs and views of carers. So we have local carers cafes, we have regular carers feedback in terms of forms. Of course, there is always compliments, hopefully not too many complaints, feedback from partners, quarterly monitoring reports, our communication and feedback from grant funders. Another key aspect of how we gauge our effectiveness is that the organisation, we're currently undergoing our charity assessment. So for trusted charities, and also our advice line, Chartermark, is coming up for renewal. So we'll have in-person visit by the assessors in the new year. Yeah. So what about challenges and opportunities going forward? Without doubt, these are really difficult times for the voluntary sector. The funding climate is increasingly competitive, with some grant funders deciding to offer smaller grants for shorter periods or change their eligibility criteria. A recent example of this is one of my first tasks was to look at a large-scale funding bid for the City Bridge Trust, who is a funder that we've had considerable success with and developed a good relationship. Sadly for us, they have a new 10-year strategy, and there are 4 areas, we will not meet their criteria. Yeah. So this challenge must be navigated whilst we deal with significant increases in the number of adult young carers with complex mental health needs. For our adult and young carers team, capacity is a big challenge. We continue to deliver high-quality, responsive services, but with fewer staff. Identifying and registering new carers will only increase workload. For this reason, we need to embrace opportunities to develop the service and extend our reach with better use of technology and AI solutions. An example is that we're currently considering participation in a pilot project with North West London Carer Centres and Carers Trust to develop enhanced digital support to carers to increase numbers and reach underrepresented communities. This will enable us to manage demand over the lifetime of the contract. As I stated earlier, if funding permits, we will aim to increase our wellbeing offer north of the borough for adults and young adult carers. Whilst the partnership is strong and enduring, we are not complacent. We continue to look at ways to improve our offer. We are reintroducing strategic development days, which I understand used to take place before COVID, with partners to address challenges and further develop our services. Thank you. We'll move on to my colleagues at Mind.
Hi, I'm Angela Stago. I'm the Chief Exec of Mind in Hillingdon.
And I'm Evelyn Cecil, Assistant CEO of Hillingdon Mind.
So our collaboration with the Carers Trust is quite long, actually. We go back a long way. And we've kind of moved from a situation of providing what originally was a basic sort of drop-in cafe social for people that were looking after people with mental health problems, to seeking extra funding as a collaboration from the National Lottery, which gave us an extra $106,000 a year for the next sort of 5 years of providing psychotherapists and a social worker that work with specifically people that are looking after those with mental health needs. As you can imagine, they can be challenging and quite complex in what they actually need, and in terms of being able to offload to a counsellor about what's actually happening at home is a kind of key priority for most of the carers that we actually see. So we're fully engaged. So at the moment, all of our counsellors are busy. They offer around 25 sessions a week with a volunteer. on top of that, and our social worker basically will provide any family support to anybody that rings in and actually requires someone to advocate for them with social services or statutory services. So that's our kind of interlink really with the Carers Trust. So we're providing that kind of, I suppose, expert sort of knowledge on mental health. I mean, the other areas that we kind of work in are specifically we want to train a number of the carers in mental health first aid. That will start next year. As much as it sounds like, we were talking about this the other day, that it sounds like it's to give other people first aid. It isn't. It's actually to inform carers about looking after their own mental health and how to look after their own well-being. More than anything else, really, because I think carers give and give and give until they're gived out. And that's, I think, an area that we're specifically looking at bringing in. We also work with the Recovery College, which is part of the NHS services, to look at delivering specific, and we've gone into partnership with Recovery College to actually deliver specific training around schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, dealing with stress, those kind of aspects, which those are workshops that anybody can actually go and attend them so that they can actually just learn more about the mental health situation and gives them a better understanding of actually the illness and how to react or not to react in dealing with things.
Just to say as well, last year we supported over 250 carers, and also as well it's the support for carers whose own mental health is deteriorating as well. So, in terms of early intervention and prevention, that's a strength of the project, is that we're looking to support carers of people with a wide range of issues, not just mental health, isn't it? So, and adding that layer of practical support as well, so it's boosting up the services offered by Carers Trust, and being able to work in really close partnership with not just Carers Trust but other partners as well, with those cross referrals and development of group activities as well. So we have a new programme coming up in the new year, particularly as you've said, offering mental health awareness, mental health first aid, and other psychoeducational workshops in partnership with our colleagues at Carers Trust.
I'm happy for people to go around the table if that works best.
Hello. My name's Rachel. My name's Becky. And we're co-directors of Good Space Community Interest Company, and both also qualified drama and movement psychotherapists. This is our first one of these. Unlike Hillingdon Mind, we're brand new to the partnership as of this year. So bear with us as we kind of get to grips with this sort of setting. But I guess just to start off by introducing ourselves really. So we're a community interest company established in 2020. We offer drama and movement therapy, both group and individual, and wellbeing workshops and reflective spaces for frontline professionals. As I say, we're both qualified drama and movement therapists. So I suppose there's some familiar faces here. So we started out, actually, Councillor Becky Hagel will know us from the very beginning because we've done some work with Hillingdon Brain Tumour and Injury Group, and has been supporting our work from the beginning. So I suppose we became part of this partnership to offer support to both young carers and also carers of those adult carers. Yeah, thank you. So the work that we're doing in practice with the young carers is going into schools and offering wellbeing workshops, so a bit like Hillingdon Mind, speaking about the psychoeducational support, responding to themes and needs presented in schools and colleges, for example, emotional regulation, challenging emotions, distress tolerance. We work in partnership with Carers Trust to also offer some case management support as well. And then in practice with Alzheimer's Society, who we're partnering with, we've been offering a package of wellbeing workshops specifically targeting carers. So as you were saying, in terms of kind of carers constantly outputting, there was a real need to consider some work bespoke to work with adult carers of those living with dementia.
Yeah, and I think, to say about the work that we do with young carers as well, it's great because it means that we can go into the schools, have a conversation and find out really what is live, because we are not at school. So we might have ideas of what might be helpful, but actually going in and kind of consulting with the young people, consulting with the school, means that we're really able to address the real issues that they're facing at the moment. And, working closely with the partners, checking in and kind of making sure that, as you said, that cross-working is working effectively. Thinking about a holistic approach also is really important to us. And bringing carers together is really crucial as well. I think that's what we're noticing with the work that we're doing with the adult carers, is kind of that having someone that understands how that is for them. You can just sort of see the relief on their face when they're in those spaces. So it's a real privilege to be able to create those spaces and make them possible. Reducing stigma around being a carer and kind of the mental health, the challenges that come along with that role. And also for us, having a touch point with mental health professionals, particularly in the schools. So, when we're going in for a series of weeks, we've been really able to kind of see a change in young people week on week, and then address that, and then instead of just leaving, we're able to say, actually with the teachers, I noticed this young person seemed like they were struggling a bit more. So really having not just a multidisciplinary team with the partners, but also with the schools, and then kind of feed that back at home to really think about that prevention and early intervention. That's the same with the case management that we do with the Carers Trust colleagues. It helps us to observe emerging patterns. We can kind of think if there are any safeguarding concerns or anything that we need to watch and to be mindful of, and to think creatively, because we are creative therapists, so that's what we like to do, but think about what might be helpful in the long term as well as in the short term. And we have, so part of what we've written down to talk about here is that we have not a one-size-fits-all approach, which is what we think hopefully makes the work feel more personal, and that makes people feel heard and valued, which is so important, particularly for carers where they are outputting and most of their focus all the time is on their loved one and not having any time for themselves. So we work intentionally with smaller size groups because that creates psychological safety and trust in order for the work to be successful. We're not asking people to kind of share things in large groups because that wouldn't feel appropriate or safe. And so in the wellbeing workshops we are able to offer psychoeducational skills as well. So as you guys mentioned at Mind, thinking about how can you manage your own emotions and your wellbeing, and what strategies can be put in place, as well as having an opportunity to kind of reflect and share. And to connect, the connections that we build, that the young people and the adult carers build within the groups as well, feel really significant, offer a reduction in isolation, and enable us to kind of put things together, and sometimes the groups continue outside of the space that we've created, so that's really nice.
So we're thinking about kind of lifetime of the contract. So Give Space, we work out of multiple schools, colleges and groups, and we've been targeting those most high need as the priority, and those with the most carers. We have been offering the psychoeducational tools, as Becky mentioned, and these tools are equipped to better manage mental health outside of the space, and kind of embedding them within everyday practice. And going into schools mean we are reaching young carers who otherwise would be unable to access this type of mental health support. The schools and colleges who have a less high number, we have instead been offering summer holiday and half-term groups. This is also reaching those who may need more support over the holidays. And we're working closely and flexibly in partnership with Alzheimer's Society and Carers Trust to ensure referrals are meeting demand as well.
Yeah, we use charity. We're getting skilled up on charity logs, so that means that it's all so it's all on there, so we can kind of have again that live sharing. And if someone's engaged in a workshop, or if we feel that perhaps they need a little bit more, it's great because we can kind of put that note on there, and then other partners can see, I can see that they didn't engage too well, or actually they found group work really difficult, so maybe they need more of a one-to-one or a counsellor.
Just a quick interruption. What is charity log?
Anybody
can answer that, but it sounds interesting. So if you could just turn on your mic,
It's our data management system. Yeah, okay, so it's where we collate all our information regarding clients, regarding risk assessments, interventions, so you can pull off data from there to enable you to do reports.
So in theory, if, let's say, Give Space come across a young carer who's caring after somebody who maybe has mental health issues, then you can sort of look at the system and maybe see if the person they're caring for has had some interaction with Mind, maybe, and how that, and then pull off information to help you and maybe communicate with each other. Is that how it should work?
Exactly.
Does it work like that?
Yeah.
Sorry, microphone. Sorry, just in terms of people watching on.
The feedback I've had is that it does. Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted, and that was cheating by asking a question in the middle. So, so if it's okay if we move on, and then obviously more questions might come up. And I promise not to cheat and ask any more questions as we go through, but that was quite interesting. So, Jane, do you want to talk a little bit about Hillingdon Hospice?
Will do. So, the hospice, which is Hillingdon Hospice, working with Michael Sobel House jointly, has been part of the partnership for a long time, but I've just been in the chief exec role here for a year, and it's been a fantastic year. And it's interesting, there's much that Becky and Rachel said that I could riff off, because whilst the majority of our clients are at the other end of the age spectrum, much of the features of what they've talked around psychological safety and personalisation are equally applicable for the carers short breaks element, which is what the hospice is proud to support. I think there's another similarity between working with carers and the more specialist end of palliative care, which is that what's right for people and their loved ones is also right for productivity and a good use of resources. By supporting people where they want to die, we are also making sure that we're using funds wisely. People don't want to be in hospital. By supporting unpaid carers in the way we all do, we are also ensuring that statutory funding and services are used where they are really need to be focused. So there's really interesting parallels for us as a specialist provider of statutory services, and also our key role in the partnership. And I think what we hear from carers and their loved ones all the time is that knowing they've got access to planned support, but also urgent support, is part of what makes them able to keep going. This is a 24/7 job, and sometimes we forget that. The snippets of life that we get the privilege to share are just that, they're snippets, and people are there looking after loved ones, doing this for the first time often, encountering those scary moments where they've never had to deal with it before, 24/7, and knowing they've got that support really keeps people going. And part of why I think it helps to have the hospice as a care provider is that not only do we have a fantastic workforce of domiciliary carers who deliver this service, we have access to the support and training from our wonderful medical team, from our physio team, from our nursing team, and we put in a lot of additional training and support for our carers so that they are able to tool up those clients, and it's really individualised. We have, as I said, 43 carers. They are an incredibly diverse workforce. It's something I'm proud of at the hospice. That number's doubled in the last year, and it's also a workforce that is reflective in terms of age and our population in the borough, which is great in terms of building those trusted relationships with our community. And just before I hand off, because I'm conscious of time, my favourite email I get every Friday is our Feedback Friday that I get, which describes the feedback. And I just went through last week's, and I thought I'd share a couple of quotes which I think really exemplify what people experience from us. So the first one was, "Mandy is remarkable. She always arrives on time." What does that say about other services? She's very kind and respectful to me and my husband. Manal takes me for a walk in the park, and we chat about everything. Because of this, my physio is very happy with my progress. And I think those are, they're not the gushing responses we sometimes get, but they're really practical in terms of the impact we have and how people feel because of the support we give them. Thank you.
Is it Madhuri?
Madhuri,
yeah, if you'd like to sort of talk to us about the Alzheimer's Society.
Yeah, well, it's about dementia support within the partnership, and I am seconded to the Alzheimer's Society to get the specifics around the dementia knowledge, and that's how I was recruited. So since I've been around the partnership, I'm so privileged to sort of see that every carer that has somebody that they are caring for with dementia. So our starting point is usually from the memory service, once they get a diagnosis. From the diagnosis, we get the referrals through to our service, and then either we then get the carers to access all the partnership services, and we support every carer for as long as their journey in looking after somebody with dementia is necessary. And quite often it's when things are going wrong is when they're likely to seek us. So we have the partnership with Hillingdon Care, because I think quite a large portion of our service in terms of respite is with people with dementia. We're doing work with Give Space, and it expands to information and advice around benefits, etc., because the condition is a long-term condition, and it will need different parts of the services at different parts of their caring role. As far as it's my first time, I'm just winging it.
That's all right.
So forgive me.
I'm winging it still here, as no one's noticed, which is really good. Thank you. So we'll have a chance to open up to some questions, and obviously further conversations can be had outside this meeting as well, if we need to. I've got a couple of questions, and then I'll open up to the rest of the committee. My first question is, how do you know what carers want, and then how do you know how to provide what they want? I'm looking at Linda first of all, but feel free to delegate very quickly to others if you wish.
All of us will have different comments on this. We listen to them, but in a really meaningful way. Their views, their needs, their aspirations, they shape our services. Yeah? Okay? For example, our wellbeing services, they have been tailored to meet, the requirements of carers. So down to, we might offer gardening, we might offer arts and crafts, those are the type of things that people are saying they will help us. Information and advice, there is a lot of support with form filling. Universal credit is a big one, so that is a great need. If we look at our young carers, imagine a 12-year-old who should be able to enjoy going to school, enjoy having a social life, but doesn't have those young person experiences on a consistent basis because they are caring for a parent and a sibling. So it's about ensuring that we provide them with that respite from their caring responsibilities where they engage with other young carers. We've had a recent camping trip where young people have just said, wow, being away for a few days and doing this is my best experience ever. Those are things that, children in maybe other families can actually take for granted. So it's about listening, engaging, responding to any wishes to make any changes, and the fact that we have staff and trustees and volunteers. I think one of our volunteers has been with us for 18 years and was a carer themselves. So we have individuals with lived experience who really resonate with what our carers tell us.
Does anybody else have anything to add on that? Or yeah, go for it.
I'll be brief. I think, again, making the analogy with specialist palliative care, the question we like to ask is what matters to you. It isn't what do you want, it's what. And I think from people's backgrounds here, that would probably be reflected in all of our support that we give. And I think what surprised me when I talk to our carers is they know exactly the daughter's work pattern and what day she comes home after work, so they need to be there so they can, and the cousin who's around then, and that sort of understanding of what's important to those individuals, and therefore how the support that we put in enables that to continue rather than it being sort of task orientated. And I think that different ethos underpins, people can't always articulate what they need, but that understanding what matters helps us get that as right as we can and review.
Briefly,
I think, as part of our assessment process, it's about, as you quite rightly said, quite simply, it's listening, isn't it? And as part of that review process, as we go along the work we're doing, we're finding out, is this working for you? What do you need? It's quite simple about asking them, what they need.
Yeah.
Really.
Becky, Rachel, I'm going to bring you in because you're new, partly. But I know you've already spoken, but to bring you more into the meeting. But also, I'm just making an assumption here, with younger people might not see themselves as carers or might not realise what they could need. And I'm making an assumption here above anybody else. I mean, is that a fair reflection? If that is a fair reflection, how are you able to sort of get past that lack of knowledge and understanding of what they're doing?
I think it is a fair reflection, but I think it's also we don't go in and assume what they need, or because we might have our own ideas of what it is to be a young carer or what is really struggling, but actually maybe they're struggling with maths, and that's the thing that is really bothering them that day. So really kind of being able to respond to the big things and the small things, and keeping our sessions, the way that we work is really flexible, so we will go in with a plan, and sometimes we'll very quickly realise that is not the plan today. Then we'll change the plan and work in a different way.
Yeah, and I guess that creativity that you brought in earlier on, because we do talk, but we use creativity as a vehicle to explore the feelings. It's less direct, and it's less we're not going in saying, how are you feeling about being a young carer? We're going in and we're meeting them where they are, but we're also using the creativity as a way to explore that. So it feels less confronting, and absolutely we could run a wellbeing workshop and we could not even, that it could come up, but it would come up through kind of the third object in the room, we like to say, or the third thing. So yeah, the creativity helps with that as well.
Thank you. And my last question on a different topic, but sort of related, is instinctively, I think a lot of this stuff is a people thing. Moving towards digital, more digital is important because that's the way of life, and also how do you manage resources. But I mean, is digital support good enough, or can digital support? I know it's not necessarily a place, but how does digital support, and using that more fit into actually being able to do what you need to do, when instinctively I think there's a very people-orientated aspect to this. So again, I'm looking at you. I'm starting with you, Linda, because you're sat next to Gary. So if you don't mind having a go at that.
No, that's absolutely fine. We definitely do not see it replacing what our staff do. We hope that it will enhance. I mentioned this pilot, and one of the ways in which we're thinking potentially it could enable us to engage with more carers is younger carers, so young adult carers, who like to engage with technology, and who, when they reach the point whereby they're no longer able to engage with our young adult carers group and may not necessarily go on to our wellbeing services with our adult carers, there might be something else that they could engage with digitally. Also, we're not an emergency service, and as one of my colleagues mentioned, this is 24/7 for our carers, and for those perhaps in the middle of the night, late evening, who have a particular concern, they perhaps could engage with one of these AI solutions we're exploring, and that can bring them some comfort or provide them with information. But we see it as enhancing, not replacing.
I mean, I think we'd be useful as a committee to, when you've trialled this out and see how it works, to understand that more, because that would be interesting for us. Good. Yeah, Angela.
Yeah, I think one of the areas that we've moved into, and certainly it came into its fall during COVID, was online counselling through Zoom, and actually for a lot of counsellors a lot of carers, that's been incredibly useful, because it means that they're still at home, and that, the person they're caring for may be in another room, but they're not having to make that journey to actually go to a place to see a counsellor. Is it gold standard? We're working with Brunel University on a research project at the moment, which, weirdly enough, looks at people's brainwave patterns when they're sat face-to-face with another human being, and then what happens if they go onto Zoom. And gold standard is always face-to-face. So we're kind of trialling a new piece of technology through Brunel at the moment to see if we can improve the interaction across Zoom by putting this piece of kit onto our actual our laptops, basically. That's only just started, but funny enough, we're starting it with one of the carers to see how it works out for them.
That's fascinating. Again, interested to find out how that develops as well. Good. Well, I'm going to pass on to my other councillor colleagues now to ask questions. So I'm going to start with Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your work. It's a little bit inspiring listening to what some of you do, because I'm blessed that I've never had to use carer services, but as I get older now, I hear people I know having to reach out, so it's kind of interesting for me to see as well. But it's really interesting to know that some people as young as 8 years old are carers, and then one would assume that they don't see themselves as a carer. Who is the people or the persons that are identifying them as a carer in order to reach out to your services?
Very often the schools, yeah. So we work with a number of schools, and they do a carers award. So schools have carers champions. So they will often bring to our attention, and also Ofsted inspections going forward are requiring schools to identify their young carers. So, as I said earlier, in terms of having the greatest impact with the young carers, the schools will provide us with that information. Yeah.
Thank you. And as is often in many of our health services, we talk about the disproportionate ways communities engage with the services. And I work in a hospital, and I hope I don't cause offence, but when I see people coming to use the services in the hospital, I often see, if I was to sort of pick a demographic, I would always see, say, an Asian family with a family member, a son, or someone escort them to the hospital for their treatments. My mum, who's approaching 80, would never allow me to take her to hospital still at 80. Do you see stronger family units as a cause for the reason why demographics are hard to reach? Because in some cultures and religious backgrounds, the family units are stronger, or do you see the breakdown of family units in other cultures as a factor, and how will you kind of get in there to help that, if that makes sense?
Jane, if you want to go for it.
I don't think that's a question that is quick and easy to answer, because I think that strong family units manifest in lots of ways, don't they? And we have a population which, across different ethnic demographics, earns very differently, lives very differently, and that impacts on life. We do know that some communities, some families will prefer not to seek help from services, but we see that across many different demographics. There is a lot more work we would be keen to do about what really underpins that, if you like, choice about engaging with services or not, before we even get to who goes with you, because I think it's wrapped into a wider package and impact into health services you'll see through to late diagnosis and worse outcomes. So I think it's just a much bigger question. I'd be reluctant to typify it just about families being cohesive or not.
Thank you.
And if I may, just one last one. I'm really curious. Yes, it's for yourself actually, Jane. If someone reaches out to have respite care, how quick can you activate that? So if a carer is coping and suddenly they're not coping, suddenly they need a break, how quick do all your teams provide that? So if it was me needing care, suddenly I identified today, how quick can you step up?
Great, good question. So within the contract, a proportion of our hours are dedicated to urgent response, and we can put that urgent response within a day. Interestingly, we don't get as many requests for urgent. We often repurpose those urgent hours into planned hours, and that's right, isn't it? If we can let people know they've got a planned response coming, hopefully we don't get to that crisis point, but we can put care in really quickly.
Thank you. Councillor Punja.
Thank you, Chair. Well, thank you very much. I mean, the collaborative working is absolutely phenomenal, and I just wanted to touch base on the funding, because obviously you were talking about City Bridge funders who you didn't meet the criteria for. And so I just wanted to look about the agility of how you work as a collaborative group to meet, because funders always change their plans, don't they, and whatever is, I don't know, on trend or whatever happens, but not necessarily meeting the requirements of the service that you provide, maybe, is that the best way of saying it? So how do you kind of work collaboratively to kind of meet those ever-changing needs so that you don't miss out on that funding available?
So recently I've had a conversation with Angela and Evelyn because we know a tranche of our funding for the MIND contribution will actually come to an end in 2028, yeah? That may seem, and this contract is 5 plus 3 years, hopefully, yeah? So we don't want to rest on our laurels. 2028 may look like a long way away, but we need to plan now, okay, to mitigate any risk to the contract delivery. So it's about looking at where we can potentially align in other pieces of work. So, and also sharing information. So I forwarded some information to Angela and Evelyn about this is a fund that I've seen, but one of the things I know, because the bigger funders are becoming increasingly competitive, it's about how we can work together to identify some of the smaller pots of funding, yeah? So some funders will not necessarily say young carers, but if they are looking to work with young people, they may also be willing to work with young carers, yeah? So it's about looking at our criteria. Obviously, we want to ensure that we don't muddy the waters and apply for things that we know does not meet our mission in any way. But I think there is scope for us to be more flexible and also to try and identify new carers collectively. And with these strategy group meetings that we've got in mind, funding is most definitely going to have to be on the agenda. Yeah. Anyone else want to say that, who's been here longer?
Yeah, I think in my period of time at the charity, which has been 10 years, this is probably the most challenging time that we've ever seen for grant funding for the third sector. What's frustrating about it is people, because there's such a huge demand for grants, a number of the grants have been reduced down to things like £10,000, which, if you want to employ somebody to work over a number of years, isn't going to go anywhere, basically. So it's frustrating because actually some of the services that we'd like to offer don't meet the funding requirements that are being offered by the grant providers. And certainly, I think when we were talking about City Bridge Trust the other day, it's really disappointing because actually we can see that there's need in certain areas, but actually by just saying no, we're going to concentrate on certain things, certain ideas, it kind of chucks out a lot of people that just can't put a project together that will meet their funding criteria. So it's interesting times. I'm going to throw something in that's probably slightly controversial here, but Hillingdon Community Trust, one of the things, my frustration with them is that there seems to be a level of funding that is very, it's 10 grand. You can't get any more than that. And it is really difficult when you're trying to do something that is really meaningful in the area. And it's a shame that they're doing that, and I am going to write to them and say that, so, pass that message along. So, okay.
Something else to add to that is a challenge for us is that grant funders will look somewhat differently on something that they think is a statutory responsibility, yeah? So that is always going to be a big challenge for us in terms of securing grant funding. And because they know that local authorities have a statutory responsibility, for instance, young carers, okay, they may say, well, this perhaps is something the local authority should be looking at. I think for us, what we then are focusing on is pots of money such as employability, yeah? So our young adult carers, part of our transition work with them is to support them with education, and that's in the wider sense, that's training, their development, employability options, so trying to tap into some of that money that is actually out there. But it's tough.
Thank you so much, because I know it is really tough for the third sector at the moment, and agility is needed, I guess, in all places, but I'm glad you were able to have that conversation. I just wanted to touch base on another thing that you said is about the outreach work that you're doing if you get more funding. And I just wanted to kind of ask about how you assess your outreach work and where you're going to place that, because it was, on one hand, there was a conversation about reaching hidden carers and communities, but then there is another space which is, okay, you've identified where you want to put your outreach work in there, and I just wanted to kind of understand how you come to those conclusions.
That is looking at where there is currently unmet need. Okay, and as I said, having been in post 9 weeks, consistently what I'm hearing is we need to have a greater presence north of the borough. Yeah. All right. My understanding, there are issues to do with travel, sort of location, the correct venues. Efforts have been made in the past. Attendance engagement wasn't as high as that we would have liked, but that doesn't mean that we're going to be deterred. We need to keep trying and trying. So that is definitely a factor. Yeah.
Can I just add something in there? So quite consistently we're approached by local community organisations across the borough to go in and do, workshops and mental health awareness works. And as part of the partnership, one of the things that we'll always be doing at those events is talking about caring and the caring role and the toll that it can take, for example, and often that they're the sort of opportunities where we'll be coming across some of those hidden carers.
I think some of the specific work that we've done is with Hyatt and the Somaliland community, because there's a number of reasons that community is hard to reach. Culturally, there isn't a desire to go outside of their culture to ask for help, and it's almost the feeling is that we should be able to do this ourselves, and certainly around mental health that can be incredibly challenging, but they don't recognise themselves as carers. That's the major issue. So when we're doing outreach work, it's about actually saying, well, no, actually, you might be a mum or dad or a brother or a sister, but you're a carer. So.
Yeah, go one more, then I'll bring some other councillors. Thank you.
I just wanted to go to Good Space and just go, amazing work, and I just wanted to really ask about, I come from the creative sector, so I totally relate, of how important the creative sector is to mental health, but just in terms of what you do, is there kind of a difference between secondary and primary education in how you deliver and what you identify?
Yeah, definitely. So the way that we are trained as drama therapists is kind of, as Rachel said before, like meet people where they are. So we use the creativity, but we work with all ages. So we would work with, I think our youngest client has been 4, and our oldest client was 97. So a real kind of range, because creativity is for everyone, and art is for everyone, and drama therapy sounds terrifying, but it isn't. And it's kind of using those different ways of helping people to connect through creativity and pitching that appropriately. You're probably going to get a very different response from a group of 8-year-olds than you are from a group of 14-year-olds, and having thick enough skin to be like, okay, this is something else that we need to try here. So yeah, it's very varied, I guess, the way, but we've got a lot of tools in our toolkit as drama therapists. Does that answer the question? Yeah. Oh, good.
Thank you. Yeah, go for it. Yes. Go for it, Linda. Yeah.
Question, Councillor. Obviously, one of the big ways of looking at outreach is demand. Yeah. So increasing demand. So I neglected to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hacker.
Thank you, Chair. Congratulations. I think we run a really amazing service, all of you together working together as well. So congratulations, everyone. We're proud in Hillingdon to have you all. So my question is, are we seeing anything different coming up for requirement and need? Obviously, as society changes and different things appear, I presume people are having to work more, so that probably we're seeing working carers. But I just wondered whether there's any different things that we're seeing that people are requiring support on, and also if there's an increase in a certain area as well. So that's my first question. Thank you.
I can definitely answer something around mental health care. As you may imagine, the mental health care services are pretty overwhelmed. And what we're experiencing as a third sector is that people that would be more complex than we would normally take on are being offloaded to third sector because there isn't the capacity within the NHS to deal with them, and that also means that the carers are not maybe given the support as well that they would want to have from statutory services. So you've got a bit of a vicious circle going on that, you know, the individual is becoming more and more unwell, and the carer is having to deal with more and more extreme issues. I mean, for us personally as a charity, that means that we've had to really start looking at recruiting mental health social workers as opposed to just what would be normally like a mental health carer, because we just don't have the abilities and skills that you need for complex needs.
And I think that we've seen an increase in intersectionality, really. You know, we see an increase in people with neurodiverse issues and mental health. I think that's definitely on the increase.
Yeah.
Do any of our other guests have any views on that question?
I'll go for it. I think, again, there's lots of different angles to it. I think two striking things for us are since the pandemic, people haven't come to groups in the same way they used to. There's definitely that pause we had where people weren't coming together. There are some populations who never have come back together quite in the same way, and so that need to go to where people are is greater than perhaps it was pre-pandemic. And the second thing, and you allude to it in the sort of more people working, and I think we see that trickling through to lots of other areas in terms of people feeling that pressures about transport costs, and people, for us, a huge impact on volunteering, because if more people are working in childcare costs, meaning is it harder to volunteer and harder to work? I mean, there are some, dare I say, advantages in terms of people. We're getting great people coming into the caring workforce because there's people who are wanting to look for motivating great jobs where they get to make a difference, and it's a great way to do that. So if there was any little nugget of hope in the challenges that our communities have got, is that we are getting some really great carers into our work.
Great. And you have a second question?
Yes. This is a bit of LBH, it might be a Gary's and a bit of Linda's. How are we getting on with the assessments? What's it like if someone asks for an assessment? How long is it taking? And then how long is it from once the assessment's been done to the actual package that's been put in place? So what's the time frame? I mean, I knew we used to have a little bit of delay, backlog of the assessments. How are we getting on now?
I'm afraid, Councillor Hagger, I might have to come back to you on that one in terms of assessments that adult social care are undertaking.
Councillor Bells.
Thank you, Chair, and thank everybody for the presentation. It's marvellous to see. I used to work for Relate Relationship Counselling, so I'm aware of the issues with Zoom counselling, etc. All the fun and games of that. Just some time ago, when I worked for Relate, we tried to set up young people counselling in schools, and where we could get in, it was very successful. That was the problem, and I wonder whether mainly would give space, whether the schools and colleges we work with are all receptive and engaged with your work.
Yes, I would say, generally, yeah. And I guess the way that we work really closely with Carers Trust members of staff who, through the case management meetings, that's how the referrals come through, and often they've already got a link with the school or college, so when we kind of arrive, they're already familiar with the partnership, and actually in terms of I suppose it's almost about trying to meet, I think as you said earlier, about prioritising the need, because we're often met with people going, yes please, to these services, and here's X amount of children, and I guess particularly for me and Becky, it is just the two of us, so in terms of capacity we have to work kind of to think about prioritising needs. So I'd say if anything the feedback is yes please, come in more, but I guess the challenge then for us is then working really closely with the school to think about kind of where we need to prioritise and ensuring that we meet the really live needs that are going on in schools and colleges.
So the schools contact you, or do you contact the schools?
So the schools have, I think Carers Trust contact the schools, and so they work with a lot of schools across the borough. 28, yeah. And then through our monthly case management meetings that myself and Becky have with Carers Trust staff, we'll say to them, okay, which school would you like for us, or college would you like us to go for this half term or the next few weeks, and then they'll let us know where the highest need is in their opinion, because they're also going into those schools and doing some work, like there's a counsellor that's based in some of the schools as well, and then the schools team as well that go in, so they're kind of really live on the ground, able to identify kind of like what school needs it, first, and then myself and Becky would meet up with the person at the school and work out what the cohort, which cohort they would like us to start working with, and then we can pretty much go straight in from there. So yeah, that's how we kind of work it. Thank you.
I'm going to finish with one big question, open question. So we're coming to the end of our review now, and what we're looking to do really is come up with recommendations to improve early intervention and prevention for those with health needs and social care needs, related to social care needs. And I suppose I wanted to let you know this isn't just about obviously those who have the needs. It isn't just about the statutory or not statutory providers, but the providers, the sort of professional providers, shall we say, for want of a better term. This is about the support networks and those around them as well, because that's super important, which is why we're having this witness session. So, what would you like us to write in this report then? Or just any ideas that you have now? If you think in the next week or so there's anything that comes up and you want to email Nikki and let her know, that'd be very good, because we're going to be sort of coming together our ideas over the next month. But I just wanted to give an opportunity for people, if they have anything they think they want to mention now, to sort of influence us directly. Becky?
Lots of collaborative working, because sometimes I think as well without, you guys mentioned the intersectionality of kind of there's neurodiversity, but also perhaps there's neglect, but not because people don't care, but because the family are struggling. So that becomes a secondary problem. When there's struggles, it's kind of a knock-on effect. So then we need to work with social workers as well, because we need to think about if this child's on a child in need plan, and actually who else is at home. And so I think lots of just working together and closely together, collaboration.
Something that comes very much to mind is we do have some challenges with some of our club venues for our young carers, in that they are not in the best places, and they involve quite a long commute for a young carer. This time of the year you have to think of safety issues, so it's actually having the right spaces and being able to negotiate that with the authority.
So, Sandra, you put your hand up, who's our Corporate Director for Adult Services and Health. It is an interesting question. How does the social care fit in with this partnership that's going on?
You read my mind. A couple of things I just wanted to say. One was that I've come for a different report for the purposes this evening, but it was fantastic to hear from all of you and the work that you're doing for Hillingdon residents, and you can't underestimate, and I think this is what needs to go in the report, if I may add.
All ideas are good ideas. We'll consider them and don't necessarily take them on, but if they're good ideas, they might end up in there.
That actually, without the third sector support, we're about to talk about adult social care demand, and without the third sector support and the early intervention that is happening here, we could not manage that demand. So as part of our whole strategy for managing residents' needs across the borough, this is absolutely vital work, and we are pressed to the limit in adult social care, and that is obviously being reflected across here today. So it's essential that we continue to maintain our third sector providers, give them all of the support that they need to continue, and the work that they're doing is fantastic to enable residents really to continue to live their lives every day without having to come to social care for support. So really, really positive stuff. Thank you.
Okay, Gary, you want to come in?
I just really wanted to make the point that, Chair, that we've been talking about the carer support service contracts, and to emphasise this is something that will actually evolve over time, and it's not fixed now, and not fixed for the duration of possibly up to an 8-year period. And what I hope the committee's heard tonight from the Hillingdon Carers Partnership as to how responsive the service is to what carers are saying, and to emphasise that will actually be taken into consideration over the lifetime of the contract. So, as I say, it will evolve to meet changing needs.
Yeah, go for it.
Just for some support with our creative thinking to ensure our sustainability. Yeah, as we've already said, the climate out there it's really tough, and we know that you have to make very hard decisions on a daily basis as to where you put your funding. But some perhaps additional support to help us be creative and to identify some. I mean, I'm thinking of what you said earlier, Angela, about just £10,000. Yeah. Any influence you have to bear on some of those local funders in the borough, that would be appreciated.
That's useful. I mean, space is so important in life, isn't it, if you want to improve, and sometimes not factored into things. Okay, well, obviously, if you have any more ideas over the next few weeks, do let Nikki know, and she can pass them on to the rest of us to consider. I mean, it's super positive from my personal view to see all of you together, working together, talking, learning off each other, and obviously Sandra's great praise and knowledge from London Borough of Hillingdon of how important everybody in this room is, and all the people you support, so that's really super positive. So we will go away and see if we can think about how we can come up with some recommendations to try and make things better. But thank you very much. So you are now all free to leave because your agenda item, you may stay if you wish to, you don't have to, but you are definitely free to leave. So okay, thank you. I was just actually, Nikki made a very good point. Now might be a good time for us, if we have any instant reflections on what we heard, we don't have to, in this particular witness session, about maybe any sort of priorities we should be looking at when we're considering recommendations. So if obviously if maybe a bit of space, and then by email if we can share a few ideas as well, 'cause I know it's instant, but if anybody has anything now, or Councillor Haggard?
I think they definitely said about creativity, so somewhere along the line about what we can do, maybe even to help out in that area. So I don't know, there might be something we can do specifically, or join up with other departments, within the council. That's always a point, isn't it? We could join up areas, so library and stuff like that, to come together, and that might save them a little bit of cash somewhere along the line if we've got resources that they can use here.
Resources aren't just for one thing, aren't they? They can be used in different ways.
Exactly. So I think we could perhaps help out.
Yeah, venues. Councillor Puncher. I think I was going to say. Sorry, microphone. Sorry. Yeah, great. You're going to say the same. Sorry, can you just put your microphone?
Sorry. Yeah, I was going to say exactly the same thing. I mean, they've talked about venues, but in how we can help. But there's another part of this which I think is really important, is that the work that they're doing, and I think Sandra kind of tipped on this, is that the intervention work actually impacts the social care work that leads on to, and to kind of support that. And I think that this kind of decrease of third sector funding that is being felt across the board, and how trusts are now moving towards whatever next is on the vehicle trend, but how do we help kind of give them that kind of business support structure which enables them to work collaboratively together, could be something quite vital, that, you know, we might have access to some things that they don't have access to, but just kind of, I don't know, just giving them the support, because they're peddling all the time, and that feels really sad, because it's really vital.
Yeah, I mean, can we take away some of the nonsense, boring but important admin stuff through our expertise of being an organisation full of nonsense, boring admin? For example, whether we do it well or not is probably up for a debate, but I think that's something worth looking at. Can we, because we want them to concentrate on their core stuff that they're doing, you know, and there is always, in smaller organisations, there's always the opportunity, isn't there, I think, to try and remove some of that time to give them time for other things. So that's an interesting idea, I think.
Sorry,
yeah,
just kind of like, and it could be the fact that as an organisation we know or hear of things where there are pots and money, but it could be signposting rather than anything else, but kind of like building that signposting knowledge bank, I guess, and enabling them to create that agility, because it must be, and I know how hard it is when you are battling and you've not met a particular trust kind of criteria, and you're just that bit off of it, and it might be having to reword something, or I don't know, just looking at it just to fit into that space.
Sounds good. Okay, sorry, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, and just we hear in almost every example, and I mention it, is the different communities within the borough and the barriers, and talk about working together with the faith leaders of those groups. But when does that actually happen? Do those faith group leaders ever come to committee and to sit and listen to the partners? And maybe some of those groups should come and listen to what these people are doing and what these people are saying, because I think every example of social care that we've talked about, we've talked of the barriers that they create. And no one culture is to blame, or no one culture is better, but they all say it, and I think maybe these leaders need to be invited into committee and listen to what the partners are saying. Thank you.
I mean that sounds like an interesting specific item, isn't it, beyond just today, a specific item, because you're right, because there is a theme across many items about accessing different communities and different community take-up. Maybe something we can think about putting on the work programme, future work programme. Councillors, Councillor Hagger.
Yes, I mean, something I picked up on here as well was that hidden carers, you know, the ones that we don't perhaps, touch base with, and there's a lot of prevention work around that as well. So I'm not sure, I mean, I know with social services do work with obviously Hillingdon carers as well, but I'm wondering whether there's more, you know, we can elaborate, do a little bit more work, pick up some prevention ones, the ones that come in maybe early on and touch base with us. Can we integrate that sooner? Is there any other ways around that we can get those hidden carers? Because we know that if we come in at the very beginning of their caring line, it's much more beneficial, so we won't have the knock-on effect later on. So I'm not sure how we can do that, but I'm just saying, and whether it's something that we open up with, you know, like we've got quite a lot of centres now as well, haven't we, that we can probably work in line with? I don't know.
Yeah, so we're just probing, so that's good to know. Sandra,
So Hillingdon's core offer of early intervention is vast and really impressive, actually. And if you look at it from 0 to 19, so children's services in terms of our family hubs, or all of that activity, all of the work that goes on, followed by all of the work that our third sector providers do, a lot of that is driven by public health. And the improvement in people being able to self-care, to be fit and well, to be able to cope and manage on a day-to-day basis. And these are really good examples of people helping all of those with a diverse range of issues in their lives, doing the same job, which is helping others in their lives support them to continue at home. We really couldn't manage the adult social care demand without, which is why we specifically target using public health to drive that health improvement. I think it would be really interesting for the committee to review the work of public health at some point in the future. It is covered mainly by the Health and Wellbeing Board, but it might be that would be a good opportunity for us to look at, because it covers all of the third sector interventions right the way across the board. From this group are just in terms of carer support, but we've got all sorts of support happening, from autism to mental health to literally everything. So it would be worth thinking about how that feeds into this whole learning intervention programme.
We had something on public health about 3.5 years ago, I think, so it does sound like it's time to sort of revisit that. So, yeah. Councillor Punja?
Again, sorry. And I would like to pick up on AI intervention or innovation at this point as well, because I found that fascinating that they were doing that research with Brunel, and there's got to be something more in the recommendations around looking at transformative approaches that doesn't replace the people-centric work that they do, but that actually enables the back-end kind of work that they do. I found that fascinating.
Yep, Councillor Bales?
Yeah, I agree with all the points people said. For me, I remember there used to be a lot of emphasis on the numbers of people that you're seeing and not the outcomes. And I think managing outcomes is a lot more important than the number of people you see. And you've got the examples that the Hillingdon hospice person read out. That's a positive outcome. And I think, it'd be good if we can emphasise that more. It's important that we see the numbers. It's no good throwing money at these people and they're not seeing anybody. But it's no good throwing money at them and they're not doing any good. And I think managing outcomes, there are programmes out there for managing outcomes that we should emphasise them.
Great, good. Okay, Councillor Haggard, then I'm going to move us on for now because we'll come back to this more. But
sorry, just one more, which is part of your portfolio anyway, but the young people, and I looked after people, is there any way that we can also connect? And, there might be some skill sets that they have that they might be transferable, they might want to do some work experience with one of these sets, they might be carers themselves. So I think we can cross-sector there too.
I did think about the intersection between that as well. Okay, so as we're here, I know this sort of comes under the work plan, but we'll do it now very briefly, so we don't have to do it later as such. Not the whole work plan necessarily, but in terms of where we go next, we have at the moment in the work plan findings for December's meeting. Now, I think for this report, I think we should move findings to January's meeting, because I think what we should do is essentially Nikki and I go away and think about a first sort of set of recommendations before Christmas, test it with the committee via email, get some feedback, and then we can come to January's meeting with some findings more in depth, and then that will hopefully, most of the report will be drafted anyway, so getting the final report by the February the 17th should be doable as a way forward. Nikki, you're going to do most of the work. Does that sound achievable to you?
Chair, I can make it work.
Okay, fantastic. Christmas is cancelled. No, definitely not. Okay, great, good stuff. Okay, so we'll do that. Fantastic, thank you everyone, and we'll carry on talking about this over the next couple of months or so. Okay, so I'm going to move on to agenda item 6. Which is the annual performance report, and we have obviously Sandra Taylor, who's already spoken, so thank you very much, and Ian Kavanagh. Is this your first time at this meeting, or have you been before to us?
Yes, Chair, it's my first time at this.
Fantastic. I'm not being rude. That's really good. So welcome, welcome to the meeting. And again, this is the first time we've had this type of report here, isn't it? Unless again, I'm missing something. It's certainly presented in this way. I like the way it was presented. So, yeah, if you could talk to us about why this report has been done in this way, particularly now, and then maybe highlight between yourselves, highlight some of the key issues you want to highlight, then we can come into questions.
Yeah, I'm happy to start with around the report itself and the history of it. I think I joined the council about 18, 19 months ago, being new to the council, so this is all quite a new experience for me, which is positive. But the performance reporting is something that I think we hadn't shared or hadn't had the highest level of transparency around with the council. So a lot of effort's gone in to make an annual performance report, and then this is something that will be embedded into a 6-monthly performance report. The timing of it is simply around the timing of gathering the data from our side, pulling the data together, etc. So that's why it's happened at this period of time, effectively.
Great, and really appreciate it. So definitely, now we've had it, we will want it again and again. So I enjoyed reading it. So thank you. Sandra, do you want to sort of highlight some of the what came out of that report, or what's being presented in the report, shall I say?
Sure, thank you. And to note that some of the data is internal data, some of the data is from statistics pulled from things like ADAS and ASCOF and a range of other data collection points at adult surveys and things like that. So some of it is 23-24 to note, so this is a look back, not a current position. And I'm not caveating that, because I think there's a couple of things in there that need work on, but just to make sure that everyone does understand, it's not quite, some of it is not today, some of it is, some of it isn't. So I think some of the very interesting statistics probably if you look back over adult social care demand, and I said earlier that demand is relentless, and it is certainly relentless in terms of people's needs are increasing. They're increasing in all of the cohorts, but particularly demand in learning disability mental health services for supported living, and for older adults in long-term nursing dementia support. So those are the two areas where demand is significant. Well, you can see from the original number of contacts that actually we're managing to stabilise that now as we get into May 25, which has been quite a challenge. And I know Councillor Martin said to me a couple of months ago, when is the COVID impact going to drop out? And I think it is, finally. So I actually can start to see that a bit of the flattening of numbers, certainly in terms of older people. Mental health demand, I mean, our colleagues talked about it today, is significant, and people's complexity and illness is really high at present. So, but we're managing the demand well, actually using a range of support with AI tools, and we've just got a new AI tool in adult social care that we're piloting, which is supporting social workers to be able to translate their assessments in a much more efficient way, which allows them to do more work in a week instead of spending their time typing. So some of that is really improving our ability to manage the front door, which is always the biggest challenge. Safeguarding, I don't think we have on this, but safeguarding referrals continue to be an enormous number, and we're looking at the numbers that actually convert into actual concerns and actual Section 42 inquiries, which is the formal inquiry for safeguarding, is steady and reasonable. So we're just looking at how we work with our partners, who are the main referrers, to make sure that they're doing the right referral route and making sure that they're accessing third sector suppliers first before they're coming to us if they think that there is a concern or a need. So you can see, so the first couple of sets of data you can see are in-house data. We've been blessed with Ian's team creating us Power BI dashboards, which I think you will probably have access to now, which is making a really significant difference in us being able to understand the ins and outs of adult social care, which is exactly what it is. We have learning disability mental health clients coming in young and staying for a very long time and being a very high cost to the council, and then we have older people coming in for a very short period of time. So you have the ins and outs of those people. So you can see currently we've got, so back in March of this year, we've got roughly 5,500 active services for people in adult social care. instinctively off the top of my head, I know that's around 3,000 people at any one time receiving, individuals receiving care and support in the adult social care space, and that number's fairly stable for us at the moment, and that's really positive. So where we see lower numbers in home care, we see higher numbers of people using direct payments for self-directed support. That's something that came out of our adult social care inspection by CQC, and so we're driving the increase in using direct payments to choose their own care and pay for it in that way. So when you see that home care is going down, it's not that the use of home care is going down, it's just that people are choosing to buy it themselves differently. Home care and reablement will always be the first choice kind of menu for what it is that people choose from adult social care to support them. Once they're into adult social care, and I would absolutely say our third sector support, so Age UK, Carers Trust, and the range of people that you've met through the previous review are the ones that we would want to be the first core offer in support for anyone with emerging needs. Some of the data that you can see that are around learning disabilities, clients who are living in their own home, demonstrates that we are roughly in the same space as 50% of the other London authorities providing supported living. We, as a local authority, have quite a high proportion of people with learning disabilities in our service area, and we are in the process of investigating why that is and how and which we're managing that within supported living. The number of people in residential nursing placements will have been affected by 22-23. You would have seen a huge dip if you looked at the data and it went a bit further down the line. People were not accessing care homes at that point in time for pandemic obvious reasons. So you can see that we've had that. It's almost a kind of a bit of an up and down, and that is the coming and going of people into those residential and nursing placements. And the committee will be aware that we now have our own service at the boroughs, which will hopefully support residents to have their care locally. We complete about 1,000 assessments a month throughout the year. I looked today and in September it was about 1,100. Most of those don't convert to services. Most of those get diverted to early help, early support, third sector support. Those that convert to ongoing care needs will start off with a rehabilitation type of approach, so a reablement, early support, a step down approach out of hospital into a bed, and so all of our assessments in that time, almost all of those are meeting our 28-day, they are back in March, they currently are again, meeting our self-set on-time target. So we set ourselves 28 days to complete an assessment. So when somebody comes to us and asks for an assessment, we'll do a triage and we'll determine what their urgent or what their needs are and whether or not we need to react immediately, or whether we can do an immediate triage, perhaps put in some early intervention and then go back and do the assessment through that process, or whether we might even have to go out that day. So there is a triage process, but we're meeting our own 28-day target to make sure that we support people. I think in the main, the other one that I'll just jump to, the survey results can be tricky. Some of those can see up and downs in the information, so you'll see some that say that we are lower than other London boroughs, but the next page says the exact opposite to what that says, that we're better than most of the others. So it's quite tricky to sometimes understand the data that drops out of those. We're expecting a new survey in December, which will be a refresh of that. And then finally the one that makes me gasp until I read it correctly is the staff turnover point. And the staff turnover point is the lowest number is good, not the highest number is good. So just to note that our staff turnover in adult social care is really very good, and way below the London average of 19.4 at 13.2. So I think those are the key highlights for me.
Good, thank you. I mean, I think the very quickly on the staff's low turnover, we used to have quite a high turnover, I think, if I remember rightly, and the fact is it's really competitive for social workers around this area because there's so many choices for social workers to go to. So I'm sure it's not just money. I'm sure it's hopefully it's because of working environment as well, which keeps people, because that's part of happiness. So it's really positive to see that we're doing very well on staff turnover. I have one particular question, then open up to everyone else. I noticed that at the beginning it speaks highly about reablement and how reablement is the most effective intervention to support residents and intervene early in order to stop issues from escalating. I mean, what are we doing to improve our reablement? Even if it's good, we probably want to do it more and better, because if it's so effective, it's good for us, but it's obviously good for the people who are having early intervention. So are we looking to basically improve and expand our our reablement programme?
So it's a really effective programme and has been for a number of years, to be honest, and it's difficult to capture, but cost avoidance in terms of what reablement does for any local authority is significant. Reablement is funded through the discharge grant by the NHS with us now, so it's part of our integration work with the NHS, and it really supports both admission prevention and discharge out of hospital. We have about 30% of everybody going into reablement come from community, so GPs refer, third sector providers refer. You can self-refer to reablement if you feel that it would be beneficial to you. It's an intermediate care service under the regulations, which means people get their care provided free of charge and up to the point that they're aim achieved, so a maximum of 6 weeks, but not everybody. We would do an assessment and ensure that people have care to meet their needs, so that we can fully utilise all of the hours that we have each week available for residents to use. So in answer to your question, how are we improving it? I'm the SRO in the partnership with HHCP for the reactive care programme, which means that we're actually looking at how we can support residents to have all of their care needs met to prevent hospital admission, so taking care in the community to them so they don't have to go into hospital, particularly in care homes, with mobile response with workers to be able to do mobile diagnostics, and that's something that the NHS are about to launch. And we are combining more reablement and bridging hours together so that our community response is reactive. It's reactive to hospital discharge, but it's also reactive to stop people from having to go to hospital for treatment, because if people go into hospital, the chances are that particularly the older frail people that need a high level of support, the longer they spend in hospital, the more rehab time it will take to take them back to their baseline. So it's always our priority to have people either not go in the first place or to discharge them as quickly as possible into their own home or place of living.
Does anybody else have any questions? Yep, Councillor Punja.
Thank you very much for the report, by the way. It was very informative and really appreciate the graphics that was in this report, because I do like visuals. I just want to come back to a statement, because you have asked for if there are any comments to be made on the report, and so I just would like to make a comment. There was a statement that is in this report, so I'm just going back to the report itself so I can actually be accurate in what I say. it says in the, Sandra, this was in your statement actually, the last part, which is the Council demonstrated robust governance structures and clear accountability mechanisms ensuring transparency and responsiveness in service provision under the Care Quality Commission, which we received a good in. I am going to say that that's not true because we didn't. And we had a meeting here in this select committee meeting about our accountability and governance structures, which were clearly written out as they were adequate but not fully mature or fully embedded, and therefore consistent performance data oversight of specialist assessment pathways and embedding of learning from reviews needed improvement. And I think that if this is supporting information, if we're saying that this performance management tool is a tool for local government to take responsibility for its own performance, then I think we need to be accurate about that information, because that feels like we're not being accurate about that information. That's my comment.
Sandra?
I think it's a fair comment. I think what we're talking about is a year ago and data from now and data from a year ago, and I think that there is an element of the way in which it's written probably isn't as helpful as it should be, so we'll get it corrected.
Councillor Chandel.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sandra, for the report. You mentioned earlier about direct payments increasing, usage of direct payments. Yeah. Do they use the same carers as we would use, and what are the advantages of the direct payment system?
So a direct payment is, so it's self-directed support. So we have a team of people, sounds grand, a small team of people that administer this. We make the assessment just the same as we would make for anybody else, and each person then gets their personal budget, which is how much that we believe from the cost of care that should be allocated to each individual. Happens right the way across the board. Everybody has a personal budget allocated for their care needs, and if somebody chooses to pick their own carer, so they might choose an agency that we wouldn't, or we don't use on a framework, or they might have a personal assistant that they want to employ to carry out. Their care needs are identified in the same way, so we say these are the identified needs. As long as those are met, this is the amount of funding we'll allocate you. And actually, we do the same with carers. So carers can have an assessment and have a paid amount on a prepaid card that they can choose to spend for their benefits, to support them to continue with their caring. So a prepaid card will, people can choose where they're actually buying their support. We offer them advice and support in terms of payroll and HMRC and how people manage those kind of things, employee insurance, etc. So there's a range of support that people have to do that. They get paid monthly onto a prepaid card, and they have a contingency amount, and they're able to manage and run their care and support in that way. So effectively, yes, they can choose the same agency that I might buy, but they might choose to have their hours done differently. They might choose. It's a cost-effective way of managing things, but it can be much more flexible for people that want to choose how they have their care. Does that make sense? It's really some authorities will work towards everyone that's getting home care will do that for themselves. So, but often people don't have someone to administer the card for them or be able to do that kind of work. So we do have some support services to support that, but it is really, there is a carer element needed in managing that self-directed support unless somebody's able to do it themselves.
Excellent. I think that's the end of comments. Nikki's going to bring these comments together into a paragraph or so for us to look at as a committee, and then this will go into the report that goes to Council in November on this topic. Yeah, brilliant. Okay. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Sandra. You're welcome to leave if you wish to. Okay, so we now go on to item 7, the Cabinet Forward Plan. Does anybody have any comments on it or any observations? No, we're happy to move forward. In terms of the work programme, we obviously already discussed how we're going to put together our report on early intervention and prevention, so we don't need to talk about that. A couple of ideas have come out of today's discussion for potential future meetings, but rather than trying to place them in now, maybe we can have a think about that at our next meeting in December, which is not that long away, to be honest. For December, maybe
3 weeks.
3 weeks. Nikki knows that 'cause she has to do the work, basically. And then maybe some of those ideas we can have a think about when we can have a look in the future. Okay. So we did, yeah.
Just put that in this spaces, so in the work programme.
Oh,
Is it? Okay.
I'm just opening something there. When I look at that.
Oh yes, fine. Yes, that's true. It's on this thing, but yeah. That's cool. That's cool. No, I always ask this because I can't look at it otherwise. Doesn't mean anything. Okay. All right. Excellent. So when we come to the 3rd of December, then a couple of those ideas, we'll see if we can fit it into the work programme. March looks quite light at the moment, I think.
January's quite light.
And January, so maybe we could do two ideas, weren't there, really? But anyway, we'll talk about it in December. So that'd be good. Okay. We're all happy with that as an approach to the work programme? And that's the meeting. Fantastic. Well, thank you, everyone. I'll put the meeting to a close now.